Mr. Chair. So page 126 of the Fall Economic Statement, Annex 1, forecasts significant cuts in program expenses starting the next fiscal year on April 1st. Now, the other countries have looked to address the issue of pandemic spending by putting in place wealth taxes, by increasing the corporate tax. We've seen those announcements. And yet, in the Fall Economic Statement, there was no measure that puts in place a wealth tax, addresses the endemic pandemic profiteering that we are seeing. And we know that Canadians are going through misery in so many cases and actually need investments that will continue on through the next fiscal year. So I'm perplexed by this approach. We have other countries doing it, putting in place wealth taxes, excess profit taxes, also looking to address overseas tax havens and raising the corporate tax rate. In the Fall Economic Statement, C14, there's no reference to that in any meaningful way. So my question is very simple. Are you looking in the budget to change direction so that those investments can be put into place? And in doing so, will you heed the call that so many people have raised across the country for tax fairness, ensuring that the immense profiteering we've seen during this pandemic is actually addressed with the billionaires and the banks that have received so much in profit and so much increase in wealth actually having to pay their fair share?
Minister.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Julian, and I'm going to offer two responses. The first is to say that when it comes to our thinking about the budget, our overarching priority is jobs and growth. More than 600,000 Canadians who had a job before the pandemic don't have one today. That's a tragedy for each person. It's a tragedy for their families. And, you know, I wake up in the morning and I think about how can we get those jobs back? And the answer, in my view, is economic growth. So that is our overarching priority. When it comes to taxation, I would disagree with you in characterizing the measures announced in the Fall Economic Statement as being not weighty. Actually levying a tax on the international digital giants, which we will do, and where there is real momentum at the OECD to get this done. The Biden administration has really created an opportunity to get this done at the multilateral level. That is huge. That is transformative for the international tax framework, and that is something our government is very, very involved in. And just finally, because I see our chair moving around in his seat a little bit, let me just say, when it comes to overseas tax havens and to tax avoidance, there I agree with you very much. I think at a time when so many Canadians have suffered, we have to have zero tolerance for tax avoidance, for tax evasion, and our government is committed to that and to strengthening those rules.
Okay, thank you both. We'll go to Mr. Falk for 4 minutes, and Ms. Kotrak is allowed to close it.
Thank you, Mr. Easter. I asked the minister my question during QP, so I'm going to cede my time to Mr. Kelly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'll probably give Tamara a chance too. But I've got a question that I want to ask right now. Are businesses that opened in March of 2020, are they eligible for the highly affected sectors credit availability program?
If what you're getting at, Mr. Kelly, is the question of newly formed businesses and newly formed businesses not being able to get access to all government programs, you're quite right that they're not. And there has been a real effort to strike a balance between having integrity of programs, not creating incentives for people to create vehicles to receive government support, and supporting businesses. But let me say, I just real quick, this is substantive here. I really believe we do need to support newly created businesses, not only with HASCAP, but with the rent subsidy,
Thank you.
with wage support, and I would like you guys to help me do that.
Yeah, I appreciate your candor. That was the first time that any minister in this government has actually given a straight answer to that question that's been asked repeatedly since last spring. So thank you, Minister, for your candor. And with that, I will let Ms. Jansen ask her question.
Ms. Jansen, you get a fair bit of time. You get 3 minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Freeland, Canadian women entrepreneurs want to know why you waited till Monday to announce a special panel to deal with this disastrous she session. Did you actually delay until International Women's Day so you could make a big announcement?
Can I start answering?
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Chair?
go on.
I never know whether I need to wait for you to call on me. Ms. Jansen, I'm very glad to have you mention the creation of our task force on women in the economy. We are going to have our first meeting this week, and I am really looking forward to it. And I'm glad to hear you talk about the She Session. Women are one of the groups who have been the hardest hit by this COVID recession, and we're committed to supporting them.
You're saying that you have not had a single meeting yet, and this has been going on for months and months. Now, that just blows my mind. These women, and I'm thinking especially of independent travel advisors, I've been meeting with them constantly, are barely hanging on, and they're desperate for a concrete plan. They need people to be allowed to travel again. So under what conditions will you finally open the border, when Canadians are 50% vaccinated?
Madam Minister.
So there are a bunch of questions jammed in together there. And let me just say that absolutely, I have been holding many, many, many meetings and conversations with women entrepreneurs, with women economists, and our government is putting support for women at the center of our economic policy and our fight against COVID. Now, when it comes to the border and to travel, our priority is and needs to be protecting the health and safety of Canadians. And that is what we are doing right now. And if other parties disagree with that, then I think it's important for other parties to be open with Canadians that that's their position.
The question then is under what conditions will you finally open the border? When we're 75% vaccinated?
Madam Minister.
Canada's border policy is guided by science, and Canadian borders will be reopened when it is safe for them to be fully reopened. That's the reality. And I do also want to say, when it comes to the border, that particularly with the Canada-US border, a real success, and this speaks to Canada and the U.S. working together.
I'm really short on time. I'm wondering,
non-essential travel.
I'm very short on time.
Hold on, Ms. Jansen. We'll let the minister finish, and we'll give you the time. Minister, finish.
A very important success that we should all note has been to limit non-essential travel, but to allow trade to continue.
So, Madam Minister, one more question. Do you even have a list of criteria prepared, or are you just going to wing it like all the other pandemic response measures so far?
Thank you. Ms. Jansen, our response to the pandemic has been to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to support Canadian families, Canadian jobs, and Canadian workers. When it comes to health measures, we take those in close consultation with scientists and working very closely with our provincial and territorial partners. And the border is an issue we have discussed at great length with our provincial and territorial partners. We're acting together.
Thank you. Thank you both. Ms. Kotrakis, 4 minutes.